When I was in my 20s, I had a really good friend who, to this day, we are really close. But we worked together when we were in our 20s, and we would have these deep conversations. We were very close friends, like I said. We shared a lot about our personal lives. And we had this recurring conversation, though, that had to do with this pattern that we recognized in ourselves, and we, quite frankly, saw in a lot of other intelligent, successful, educated women. And, mind you, we were in our probably mid to later 20s at the time. And we were both, college graduates working as teachers at the time, and really had no way of knowing what was to come, in our futures. She's gone on, gotten a master's degree, extremely successful in her professional career. I've gone on and done a lot of things. And so I think back on these conversations that we had when we were in our 20s, and how absolutely accurate it was. So the conversation would go something like this. As intelligent, educated, successful women in so many ways in our lives, we've really done some pretty dumb shit. We've made some bad decisions, almost tragic kinds of choices in life. And this can be in regard to relationships, like all kinds of areas of life. We've made some dumb ass choices, right? And we would ponder, like, how can we be so smart and so successful in so many ways, but continue to do this kind of like bad decision making? And on a serious note, I really think this is an issue with women like us. And that conversation, the recurring conversation that she and I would have, has played over in my mind many, many times over the years. And I want to talk a little bit about that today because, and more specifically, I want to talk about it as it relates to what we do as women in trying to force situations. Okay. And this is one of the quote unquote dumb, if you will, decisions that I think we're pretty hard-headed about as successful, educated women. Again, I keep repeating that, I think, because it can almost seem unbelievable that we do these things. But here to the point is we try to force a lot of things in our lives. And, really specifically, quick story. I was in a position where I was absolutely miserable toward the later part of my career in higher education. And I was trying to force that situation to change it. I was trying to do all kinds of things to turn it around at one point, to do more, do better, to figure out, why certain people were acting a certain way, why these things that were making me so miserable and anxiety ridden and stressed out, why were they happening? And it felt like I was in this sort of Groundhog Day. I would leave work every day frustrated, full of stress, sometimes in tears. I would go home, beat myself up about it, or vent. My poor husband heard these stories over and over. I would vent to him. I would vent to friends. And I was constantly trying to look for who was to blame, what was wrong with that situation, and force a fix, right? And I think that's the point here is we so often try to force a fix. And what I came to realize was that what I needed to do was actually stop trying to figure out the fix, if you will, to that situation. And what I needed to do was open myself up to why this thing was happening. Why was I in this situation? And I don't talk a lot about my spiritual, religious beliefs, but I do believe in a higher power. And I remember during that time, I also was praying for that situation to change in some pretty specific ways. And I was getting more and more resentful about the fact that it wasn't changing in the way that I was praying so hard for, and I could not figure out how to fix it. Like I said, I couldn't force the fix. I couldn't control it. I couldn't change it. And the prayer wasn't working. So I was getting really angry about that too. And what I finally had to come to realize was, and I think this is one of my larger points, is that instead of trying to force the situation, I really needed to ask, what was it that I needed to learn? Because obviously, and this is one of my very core beliefs now, I believe that we are put in situations until we learn what it is that we're meant to learn from them. And so if you're stuck in a situation where you feel like, what the hell is going on? Why do I keep going through this sort of groundhog day of stress and misery? Perhaps rather than focusing on the fix and trying to force it, perhaps what I would ask you to consider is opening yourself up for what is the lesson that you're not learning that's continuing to put you in this same miserable, sometimes, situation. And so in my specific story, what I did was I started to change that prayer, if you will. And instead of saying, I want this thing to happen, please let this thing happen, I finally sort of submitted to the test or the lesson. And I said, obviously, I'm not listening. I'm not learning because I keep finding myself in this repetitive, miserable, stressed out situation. I keep feeling this way. And so please show me what it is that I'm supposed to learn. And with that, I opened my thinking, my mindset, if you will, to a whole different perspective. I stopped praying for the change that I wanted, and I started being open to what it was that I needed to change within me so that I could learn from what was happening and move on. And I really do think that's part of the missing piece oftentimes with women like you and me. We are so successful, and we can use that dogged determination that we have and so many other strengths. We can use those to achieve a lot in this life. The danger is when we try to apply that same kind of determination to areas that we can't control. And we need to really open ourselves for what is it that I need to take away here? What are the ahas that I need to be open to and vulnerable to learning so that I can move on from this situation to something oftentimes much better? And it certainly was for me. When I changed the way that I looked at that particular situation, I opened my mind up to lots of different options and perspectives, and I was able to really, what I took away from that was that I was not pursuing my purpose, my true destined purpose. I wasn't pursuing it. And I made a very bold change in my life to refocus in a completely, I was about to say a completely different direction, but I don't believe that. I really do think that it was the next step or an evolution, if you will, in the direction that I was meant to take all along. So that's what I'll kind of leave you with today. And I hope that this was helpful, but I'll leave you with that idea of stop trying to force the fix and really open your mind up to exploring and questioning, where is the purpose or the lesson that I'm supposed to take from this so I can move on to the next step, the next phase in my life. Yeah, that's really what I want you to consider. We got to stop making dumb choices and dumb decisions in life, or even thinking about them in that way, and really think about this journey of life as a long path that has a lot of twists and turns, but around every corner, there's something new that we can take away and we can build on. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. And I'll tell you what, if you have been listening, or even if you're new today, and this is the first episode, I hope you'll hang in here with me and do me a favor and rate the podcast, write a review, send me a personal message, and let me know how this has been helpful for you. I don't do advertising for this podcast. I really, it's word of mouth, and I love hearing from you guys, and I would really appreciate and be so in gratitude if you would share this episode with one of your friends. So thanks for being here with me today, and I will see you right here next time.